Okay, so after you've looked over our 4-1 notes here and have read over all this, you should then be jumping to our 4-1 skills practice. You should be working on this worksheet, figuring it all out, and then using the answer sheet to then check your answers. So hopefully you've done that already, and that this sheet is complete and that you've checked your answers. I want to take the time to now go through these questions in case you were unsure of how I got these answers. So let's start up here with number 1. It says to name the circle. So all we need to do is just identify the point that's in the center of the circle. So in this picture here, it's P. So we will just say circle P. Number 2, it says to name a radius. So we will look at this picture here, and we can remember that the word radius means that we're going from the center to the outside. There's a couple different ones that we can choose from. We can choose CP, BP, or AP. So you can either just put one of those or all three, that's fine. Number 3 says to name a chord. So remember that the chord meant the endpoints were on the outside of the circle. So looking at our picture, we can identify that DE is a chord, or we can actually name AB as a chord also. So we'll have DE or AB. More specifically, we know that AB is also called a diameter. Important to note here that every single diameter is in fact a chord because it has endpoints on either side of the circle. Number 5 says to name a radius not drawn as part of the diameter. So looking here, we know that AB was the diameter, so we don't want to use either of those for radii there. So we'll choose CP for our radius. It doesn't matter which order that you put the letters. You can do PC or CP. I'm just kind of going alphabetical with my lettering. Number 6 says to suppose the diameter of the circle is 16, find the radius. So we know from the past that if the diameter is 16, then in order to find the radius, we are just knowing that it's half of the diameter. So 16 divided by 2 gives us 8 centimeters for our radius. Number 7 says if PC is 11 inches, find AB. So looking here, we're told that PC, that would be a radius. So if that's 11, then we need to identify what the diameter would be. So PC is a radius. So in order to find AB, which is the diameter, we will just double that. So 22 inches will be our answer there. Number 8 and 9 are a little bit more difficult, but we're going to kind of use some highlighters and see this. So it says the diameter of circle F. So identifying the one on the left is circle F because that's got F in the middle there. Is going to be 5. So the diameter of this circle here has a diameter of 5. And then the slightly bigger circle over here on the right, circle G, has a diameter of 6. So looking in this picture, we know that from G to C is half of 6, so that's going to be 3. Or from B to G, that's all going to be 3. So from G to C is 3, and from B to G is also 3, to make a total of 6 for our diameter. And then over in this picture, we're going to have from A to F, so a little hard to see here. A to F is going to be 2.5 because that's half of 5. And then that means then from F to G is also going to be 2.5. Remember that F is the center of the circle. So from A to F and F to G, that's what's getting cut in half. So our first question over here, number 8, specifically asks us to find this little tiny overlap right here. And so we can see here that if from A to F was 2.5, but from B to G was 3, then the missing little piece will be 0.5. So that's how I got that answer there. And then number 9 is asking for AB. So AB is taking away the BF. So if BF was 0.5, then AB would have to be 2.5 minus 0.5, or just 2 units. Number 10 through 13 all ask us just to find the diameter and the radius of the circle given the circumference there. So I'm just going to do number 10 because the rest of them are very similar. So number 10 gives us that the circumference is 36. We just need to do 36 and divide that by 3.14. So using a calculator, which is totally fine in this lesson, we have 36 divided by 3.14, and we get 11.46. So that's what I'm going to write on my paper. Diameter equals 11.46, and we'll write meters. And then in order to find the radius, I'm just going to divide that by 2. So dividing that by 2, we get that the radius is 5.73 meters. So you should be totally fine to do numbers 11 and 12 and 13 because you have the answers right there. Now, that you're just taking the circumference, dividing it by pi, that will give you the diameter. Make sure you label your answer round to the nearest hundredth, meaning 2 decimals. And then take your answer for the diameter, divide that by 2, because we know that the radius is the diameter cut in half. Once we get our answer for radius, again, 2 decimals because we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, and then making sure we have our label. So that leaves us down at number 14 now. So 14 says to find the exact circumference of each circle. Leave your answer in terms of pi. So for number 14, we're not going to use a calculator. We're not going to need to type in 3.14. We're just going to leave our answer with the pi symbol in there. That's what it means to be exact, because we're not going to do any kind of rounding. So looking at number 4, we need to figure out how I would find the circumference. We know that our formula for circumference is circumference equals pi times the diameter. So in other words, I need to figure out the diameter of this circle. So this line right here, we should kind of be able to identify that that's going to be our line that is going to be our diameter of this figure. So then we should see that what's happening is that this is a square with sides are all going to be 3, and we need to find this diagonal. We should see that what's being created is that we have 2 right triangles. And we know that in order to find a missing side of a right triangle, we can use our Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember that our C is going to always be our hypotenuse, which will always be our longest side, which will also always be across from our 90-degree angle. So in order to find the diameter, which we need in order to do this problem, we need to solve for the C. So using my formula, the Pythagorean theorem, I'll do 3 squared plus 3 squared equals c squared. Because a and b are both 3, because these dashes here identify it as a square. 3 squared is 9, so 9 plus 9 equals c squared. 9 plus 9 is 18, so 18 equals c squared, and then I need to take the square root of both sides. So I have the diameter is the square root of 18. If you can work on simplifying it, that would be great. We know that the square root of 18 is the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. The square root of 9 is 3 square root of 2. So our diameter is 3 square root of 2. That's just our diameter. We need to come back up here and plug it into our formula. So we have the circumference equals 3 square root of 2 times pi. And that is our final answer for circumference. Last question here, number 15. Looking at this, we now have a rectangle that's inscribed in a circle. Again, we are solving for the diameter right here. This pink line is going to be our diameter. We need to find the circumference, so circumference equals pi times the diameter. We're going to leave pi in our answer, but we need to figure out the diameter. Again, we should identify that this is a right triangle. So we're going to use our Pythagorean theorem again, except for that we don't have a square this time, so our a and b will be different values. One of our sides will be 8, the other one will be 15. You could put those in any order. You can do 15 squared first or 8 squared first. 8 squared is 64. 15 squared is 225. And then we'll add those together. And we get 9 and 8 and 2. 289 is our c squared. Take the square root of 289, and that actually is a perfect square. That actually is 17. Whole number 17. 17 is the length of our diameter. So if we want to put that in our picture, 17 is the length of that diameter. So in order to find the circumference, we just plug that in, and we get 17 pi. Recall that the directions asked us to just leave our answer in terms of pi, so we don't have to use a calculator, type in 3.14. We just leave it as 17 pi. So that's going through the skills practice worksheet. I hope that helped. Make sense of all the problems. Check your answers, and they should be all correct. And then you should be ready to then complete the, hold on a second, having trouble locating it. Here it is, the 4-1 practice. So you can either complete this one on the paper and turn it in, or I'm right now working on having an assignment on Teams, so you can do either one. Okay, all set.